Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Film Study, where I'll be reviewing rookie quarterbacks. So, I got this inspiration for this by seeing forums everywhere, people arguing who the best rookie quarterback really was, comparing their team's rookie quarterbacks to other teams' rookie quarterbacks. So, in this episode, I decided to put matters into my own hands. I watched film of 5 rookie quarterbacks: Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, and Gardner Minshew. Then, I ranked them. For this episode, I will be highlighting strengths and weaknesses of each quarterback. I'll also be evaluating the cast, since that has a big thing to do with the quarterback's development, whether it's O-line, receivers, or coaches. I'll also be mentioning improvements, because that's a huge part of being a rookie quarterback, is if you improve, and Number 5, Dwayne Haskins. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not sure if Haskins can be an NFL quarterback. I hate saying this because I root for all rookie quarterbacks, but Haskins has a lot of work to do. Before I explain why, let's get into some positives. Big positive for Haskins is that he has really good pocket awareness. He can move in and out of the pocket in order to throw or scramble to pick up a few yards, even if he isn't the most athletic quarterback. Another thing is he's starting to improve on some of his many weaknesses. His decision making was absolutely terrible the first few games, but has improved to the point where I saw him making some nice reads and felt pretty good about his decision making improvements. He looked a little less skittish in the pocket and a little less nervous as well. He was very skittish at first in the first few games, but once we got to the Eagles and Giants game, he was a lot better. Alright. Let's move on to the big thing. Weaknesses. Because there are a lot of them for Haskins. Let's start off probably the biggest one. He is really slow at processing the field. It's kind of a huge deal. If a quarterback can't quite read the field, it'll take a long time to process the entirety of the field, and it ends up costing him in the end a lot of the times. Another thing I noticed is that he takes first reads a lot more than I'd like him to. Part of it might be because of that slow processor, but he goes to his first read a lot. Both Lock and Jones also did this, so it's not like it's exclusive, but both Lock and Jones did grow out of it, which is something Haskins hasn't quite done, even if he's only played 9 games. Another thing is that he does not throw the ball away, ever. All rookie quarterbacks had a problem with holding onto the ball too long, but Haskins was probably the worst of them. He'd never throw the ball away when he needed to. He'd just keep holding onto it and take sacks because of it. Haskins also isn't really that accurate. He doesn't have a great arm, and it shows. He can't really throw the deep ball consistently, and he definitely cannot beat man coverage in the way that Kyler or Lock can. His feet are also not amazing either, which definitely could play into part of the accuracy. I will say though, part of the reason Haskins probably had some subpar play was to do with what was around him. The coaching staff changed mid-season as his head coach was fired, and he did not have a very good offensive line at all. He had one good guard and everyone else was pretty terrible. It was probably the worst O-line that any rookie quarterback had, and, needs to get better. The receiving core was pretty meh as well. Terry is good, and Sims showed some promise, but besides that, there wasn't really anything else. I'm hoping that Ron Rivera can help Haskins along, as he's done some good work with Cam Newton before injuries took him down, and I'm excited to see it. I don't think this is the end of the road for Haskins, but he desperately needs to get more development, otherwise he might be out of a job soon. Number 4, Drew Lock. Just because Drew Lock is number 4 doesn't really mean he's a bad rookie quarterback. In fact, far from it. I was actually really impressed with Drew Lock, and I believe he can be the future of the Broncos. Why? Well, let's get into some positives. Drew has a really good arm. The guy can throw the deep ball very well, and he has some pretty good touch on the ball. I also like Drew Lock's decision-making improvements. He's not quite there yet, as with a lot of other rookie quarterbacks, but he is improving by the week. He also transformed from a primarily first-read quarterback to a quarterback that can read the whole entire field pretty well. While I really like Drew Lock, he does have some weaknesses. He, like many other rookie quarterbacks, holds on to the ball for too long, and he doesn't throw the ball away at all. I find Drew to be really bad throwing the ball away, especially. He also has a really bad habit of checking down, even if the play goes for negative yardage instead of throwing the ball away, which is a big problem that needs to be fixed. He also isn't the greatest under pressure, although he did get a little better. He still needs a lot of improvement on that front. Final problem isn't really Lock's fault per se, but he hasn't really faced an elite defense. Best defense he faced was the Chiefs. I'd like to see him face something like the Patriots next year. I think that'd be a good test for Lock. Some other rookie quarterbacks can perform valiantly against good defenses, but others can self-destruct. But I'm excited to see what Lock can do. Alright, let's talk about the situation around Drew Lock now. Drew's offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello, was okay, but not spectacular. The run game was alright with Lindsey, but could use a better in-between-the-tackles runner. I think Melvin Gordon is a really good compliment. I do think Pat Shurmur will be an upgrade. He was not a very good coach, but he's still a decent play caller. Drew's offensive line was pretty meh. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't amazing, and it left a lot to be desired. It also took a lot of penalties. I think Broncos fans know this picture all too well. I will say, Elway did a really good job improving the receiving core, running game, and offensive line for Drew Lock, and I think Drew Lock will have a really good supporting cast next year. So, overall, I believe Drew Lock is the future of the Denver Broncos. He shows lots of promise, and if he can improve enough, I think he can be a good to maybe even an elite quarterback. Number 3, Daniel Jones. I believe that Daniel Jones can be a franchise quarterback for the Giants. I think this because of the positives that Daniel Jones has shown throughout the season. Daniel Jones has a pretty good arm. I wouldn't quite say it's elite, like a Wilson or Mahomes or even his draft like Kyler Murray, but it's more comparable to a Kirk Cousins. It's a good arm. It's not going to hurt him, but he doesn't have that elite arm strength that some other quarterbacks have. I also like Danny's mobility. I think it's an underrated part of his game. A lot of people don't realize how good he actually is once he escapes the pocket. He can pick up a good amount of yardage by scrambling. I also think Danny has some pretty good touch. He can get over defenders really well with the arc of his ball, and I like the improvement from primarily a first-read quarterback to a quarterback who can throw to pretty much every single read. I had a hard time deciding whether Lock or Jones should be number 3, but I gave the nod to Jones because of, well, the experience and the positives I listed above. That being said, he's still a little lower on my list, and he definitely needs some improvement because of the weaknesses that he has. First of all, he needs better pocket awareness. Oftentimes, Danny won't navigate out to the pocket and throw when a defender is right next to him, and then it'll cause a fumble. Oh yeah, Danny also fumbles a lot as well. I think you've known that already, but he will fumble a lot. It's really bad. He needs to fix it. Like other rookie quarterbacks, Danny will hold on to the ball for too long looking for a play, and he kind of needs to make better decisions and read the field better. Disturbing stat I found is that Daniel Jones' adjusted interceptions, aka interceptions he's already had, plus passes that probably should have been intercepted, is 20. It's kind of rough. There are times where he won't see a linebacker coming towards a receiver or just make a really bad read in general, and kind of needs to improve that on more. Finally, I'd like to see more consistency of Danny in general. His accuracy is okay, but leaves a lot to be desired, and sometimes he can just be wildly off for no reason. He is also very Jekyll and Hyde with the consistency. He'll throw 4 touchdowns one game, then completely collapse the next game. I'd also like to add that Daniel Jones wasn't in a particularly good situation. His interior line was pretty good, but his tackles were woeful. Watching Nate Solder has been pretty painful. I'd also like to add that I'm glad the Giants drafted a tackle, specifically a right tackle, since DJ was really bad at being aware of his blind side. DJ's coach Pat Shurmur also wasn't very good. I'm kind of glad he got fired. He's a solid offensive coordinator, but everything else seemed odd. The execution wasn't quite right, and he was getting outcoached pretty heavily by good coaches like Zimmer and Belichick. Despite the problems that Danny has, I really think that if he can become more consistent and fix the issues that he does have, I think he can become the future of the New York Giants. Number 2, Gardner Minshew. Ah, yes, Gardner Minshew. I find it funny how Minshew's playstyle is very comparable to how he looks and acts in real life. As to say, kinda odd. Despite the odd playstyle, I still believe Minshew could become a franchise starting quarterback in the NFL. Why? Well, there are several reasons. Let's go over the positives. Minshew is a pretty good decision maker, in my opinion, the best decision maker by far in this draft class. He's developed a long way in the beginning of the year in terms of decision making, and really has shown improvement in that front to make it one of his best strengths. Another one of Minshew's strengths is that he can make something out of nothing. He's so good at making something out of a broken play. He can navigate the pocket extremely well with his arms and feet to make a really good play. Minshew's also learned to throw the ball away more and more. Still sort of a weakness, but he's improving on it, and I really like to see it. He's also improved in throwing on the run. Something Minshew was pretty terrible at the beginning of the year, but he's improved to the point where I think he's okay at it at this point. The biggest thing Minshew has improved upon, though, is the fumbles. He was terrible with the fumbles in the beginning of the year. Nearly Jones bad. It was really bad. But towards the end of the year, he didn't really fumble at all. It was actually really surprising to see. I like Minshew a lot, as stated above with all those positives I just listed, but there are still some very big weaknesses to his game. His arm strength and accuracy leave a lot to be desired. In particular, Minshew cannot throw the deep ball whatsoever. There are flashes where he'll make a deep ball once in a while, but it's not nearly enough to make me confident in his arm strength. He also, for some reason, can be really inaccurate on screens for no reason, just miss wide open guys. It doesn't happen too often, but it's enough to be a problem. Another problem Minshew has is holding on to the ball for too long. It's improved, but it's not as fast as I would be hoping. Although that is also a side effect of his sort of improvisation skills that I stated above, so I think you kind of take what you get. As for the cast around him, his O-line is good, but not really great. It's good enough to the point where Minshew isn't too hindered by it. The offensive coordinator Minshew had, though, was absolutely terrible. John DeFilippo's run game was terrible, although Leonard Fournette was also a part of that reason why it was terrible. And he made some very questionable play calls that I did not agree with. I think Minshew would thrive more in a system like New England's, where he could screen pass more, use his abilities in a more creative scheme, and I hope Jay Gruden can help a little with Minshew. I think he's going to be an upgrade regardless. DeFilippo was that bad. But I also feel bad for Minshew because his head coach was really bad. Doug Marrone should have been fired last year. The fact that he's here makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't give me any confidence that Minshew will be in good hands. I think Minshew could be helped with a number one wide receiver. He doesn't really have that. Chark's a good deep threat, but he's not really a true number one. And a stronger running back will really help out, because Fournette is terrible. With all that being said, I think Minshew's going to be a good starting quarterback. Even if Jacksonville gets rid of them, which if they did, that's really stupid of them, but it's the Jaguars, I wouldn't expect otherwise. He could find a starting job under somewhere else. Seems like the Bears, the Saints if Breeze retires, or even the Pats if Cam Newton doesn't resign would be nice landing spots for Minshew. So yeah, I like him. Number 1, Kyler Murray. I believe that Kyler Murray is the best of all the rookie quarterbacks, and I believe he has the tools to not only be a good quarterback, but an elite one. I also believe that he is the future of the Cardinals. Let's get wide into some positives. Kyler has a cannon of an arm. It is an amazing arm. He is really good at throwing the deep ball, and by far the best of any one of these quarterbacks. He's also really good at navigating and escaping the pocket. He can make plays with his feet. He's really athletic, and he can make defenders miss really, really well. He also handles the blitz really well, I noticed. Part of it may be Cliff's scheme with the short passing game being really good for blitzes, but Kyler never seemed to panic when there was a blitz, which is a pretty good thing for a rookie quarterback. He also never fumbles. He had 2 fumbles. One was a pitch to Kenyon Drake where Drake dropped it and Kyler was credited with the fumble, and the other was a botched snap by the center. He's also improved on his balls being batted down. He barely has them batted down now, when in the beginning of the season he was really bad at having them batted down. He's also gotten more and more accurate, to the point where I think it's more of a strength at this point. He has really good ball placement. Kyler's also better at throwing the ball away and not trying to play hero ball. It's still a bit of an issue, and a lot of sacks Kyler had were definitely credited with that, but it's improved a good bit. I will also say that he's really, really good at not getting injured. He slides a lot, which is something that all rookie quarterbacks should do. And yeah, I like Kyler a lot. Alright, I talked about all the positives with Kyler. There are a lot of positives, but let's talk about some weaknesses. Kyler's biggest negative, in my opinion, is that he lacks touch. He'll often throw a straight dagger to a receiver without much of an arc, and it can lead to some pretty bad interceptions. Kyler did get better at it, but even in week 17, I still have a massive problem with it. Kyler also doesn't really handle a quarterback spy very well. In week 14 against the Steelers, Minkah Fitzpatrick would spy, and he sacked Kyler a good bit. Kyler's got to realize that he's got to throw the ball away in those instances. While Kyler's definitely improved in not running into sacks, he still has an issue with it, and I think we will definitely need some further improving. I'd also like to see some improvement in his reading to defenses. He isn't the best at it right now. He's still good, but it needs to be a little bit better if he's going to get in that elite territory that I think he can be. I also want to talk about the situation around Kyler. I think it's pretty good. I believe in Cliff Kingsbury as a coach. I think he's a good coach. His play calling got better and better as the weeks went on. Every single week, I saw it being better. In the beginning, Cliff ran way too many curls and screens, never opened up the deep passing game at all, and used Kyler's elite arm. But it got better and better. Wide receivers were more open, there were more deep shots being fired. It was way better. I also like to use the tight ends down the stretch of the season. I think they helped a lot with not only blocking for the offensive line, but they were nice receiving options as well. Let's talk about that O-line. It was awful through weeks 1 through 14. It was terrible. I hated it. Kyler got pressured constantly. However, the line got better. I think week 15, everything started to click a bit against the Browns. Kyler got pressured way less, and it just looked more clean. I would like to see the Cardinals draft maybe another guard, though. Maybe some depth. There isn't great depth on the line. But overall, it's okay. I'm not terribly afraid of that offensive line. So yeah, I think Kyler can be a good to an elite quarterback. I believe in him, and I think he is the best quarterback by far in this entire draft class. I also think he should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and yeah, I like Kyler. Well, that was a review of all the rookie quarterbacks and their situations. Now, just because a rookie quarterback had a bad rookie season doesn't mean it's the end of the road. I mean, Peyton Manning famously led the league in interceptions in his rookie season, but he's turned into one of the best quarterbacks maybe to ever play the game. I'm excited to see where all the rookie quarterbacks end up in the next few seasons. So, goodbye for now, and see you on the next episode of Film Study.